Hey everyone, Pat Devine, Dale Brozy with LTR Digital Group with our Facebook Live session for Thursday, January 26th, I believe. So it's been a while since we've done one of these. So welcome back to the LTR Facebook community. And we do have a good topic for today. A little change going on over at Google. They've got a new ad in. First off, big news, and I'm sure you're going to get excited about this, is Google AdWords has changed their name just to Google Ads, and it's just obviously it's just a change in wording that actually reflects all the different types of ad units that Google can offer, from search to display to YouTube and more. And the more being the announcement of the new ad here for local services. So glad you could make it.
Yeah, I'm not distracted. I'm looking at my oh, there, I just showed up on screen. Okay.
We have a little technical delay going on here,
Really?
so
Yeah, a lot of lag.
It won't throw us off at all, as you can tell. Squirrel.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's kind of get into it, because this one's the local service ad is Dale. You and I talked about this before, and it used to be called Google Home Services, and that was the direction they were going. And so we've known that this has been out there and coming for a number of years.
A few years now.
So it's got a name change. It is rolling out, and it's rolled out to several marketplaces, anywhere from Atlanta to Georgia to the other end of the alphabetical spectrum of Washington, D.C., the other side of the geographical spectrum to San Diego, California, to Tampa, Florida, to, did I say Sacramento, Florida?
Did you?
I don't know. San Diego, California, whatever I said. To the Midwest, in Detroit, Cincinnati, and lovely Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah.
So it's rolling out throughout the country in major metropolitan areas. So let's kind of get into the local services, because this is going to fit for some of those, I'll call it smaller scale operations that really thrive on a local presence. So
yeah, to what you're mentioning, and hopefully those are the types of things that we focus on here at LTR. Is we've been watching this since 2015 when it was first announced. It was announced initially, as Pat mentioned, they were calling it Google Home Services, and they released it in like the Bay Area and San Jose, and had very, very limited release. And then it was really I stopped paying attention to it because it just didn't seem to be showing up here in the Twin Cities. Now, just based on some searches that I do, suddenly there was no announcement that says, hey, Minneapolis now Google, when they changed the name to Google Local Services, expanding the type of services that were going to be affected by this or touched by this, but there was no announcement, and
we're not surprised.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
That's the way Google is. They kind of roll things out without much fanfare. Yeah. But here's something that I was thinking about is the reason so this is not just our normal live stream. We want to do it on a special day, and we said we got to do a live stream about this because it can be very, very impactful to a lot of businesses. And I would even say if you're a franchise and you provide local services in multiple communities, in multiple cities, maybe you're like a Benjamin Franklin Plumbing, you're a franchise and you have them all over. This is something you need to pay attention to because it's going to affect you in all the markets that you're in, whether you're in Boston, Atlanta, or here in Minneapolis. And this is Google moving more towards becoming less of a search engine and more of an answer engine. When somebody's looking for something, it's just going to say, okay, here it is. Versus the old days of where we would do a search and we would look through it and come our own results. Now you're entering into a much more direct relationship with Google. Says if I'm looking for a heating and air conditioning person, it's going to say, okay, here's a heating and air conditioning person. Here's you can click to send them a message, and that business will get the message. Unlike sending you to the website and then figuring out how do I contact these people. Yep. So Google is actually getting into lead generation itself. It's generating the lead and it's selling those leads directly to the business. Yep. So if you do a search, and what I've noticed is you've got a list of different types of services that are officially according to Google, there's only some.
Well, according to Google, based upon this answer guide, it says locksmiths, plumbers, electricians, HVAC, carpet cleaners, house cleaners, and garage door services. But with a little bit of more research, this one was a looks like a blog article from odddogmedia.com, and it says a guide to local service ads. And they've got a much wider range that includes photographers, pet groomers,
Event planners,
roadside assistance services, house cleaners, junk removal providers, lawn care. So again, home service, local services. Event planner is not really a home service, so it is really local service. We're in the, and that's probably why the change, because it's not all just home services now. It does include tutors, so it's local services.
Yeah, and this is
the reason for the name change.
This is clearly so. When we look at these things and we think about the strategy on how to grow your local business and how to find customers or connect with customers, we try and look at a broad spectrum of things. Yeah. And when I would look at this and say, to the point that they dropped the name Google Home Services and they went into local services with the idea of, no, we don't want to limit ourselves to only home-related services, because we see an opportunity for revenue to generate leads. And if you're an event planner and leads in your area go for $30 a lead, and you just pay Google directly $30, there is no more. They don't even go to your website anymore, folks. They just contact you and say, okay, here's your lead. And Google says, well, we can just circumvent the whole thing and just say, I'll just charge you $30 all day long as a revenue source. So it's like AdWords on steroids. And when I think about this, saying, listen, the reason this is important to talk about is because apparently it's working. Otherwise, they wouldn't be 2 years later or 3 years later rolling out to Minneapolis. If this didn't work, it wouldn't have made it out of the San Jose Bay Area. Now it's rolled out nationwide for all practical purposes, and it must be working for Google. Otherwise, they wouldn't continue doing it. So this Google local services, and if you do a search, and maybe we should probably do a blog post with some pictures, but if you do a search for some type of local service, you'll see a box, a rectangular box at the top of your search with a number of different businesses listed. It does say sponsored. Those are Google local services or part of the Google local services ads. And if you click on, you'll see an expanded list of everybody that provides those services. And you lead the search results, right? You just go to this curated list that Google provides you and say, all right, you're looking for a exterior painter. Here's all the exterior painters in your area. And it gives you the ability to contact them directly from that listing. As a business owner, here's something else to be aware of. You manage all of this through a dedicated app that you download from Google. They don't call your business phone. They don't send an email. Google's controlling this lead generation process. And I suspect that the phone numbers that Google is using is probably going to be a call tracking number, or if they have the option to send the business a message. They're not sending you a text message. They're sending you a message via the Google app that you use to manage your lead. So it's a very structured process. There is a way, and here are the other things. And what jumped out at me back in 2016 or 20, whenever, when we started looking at this, Google actually does background checks on the businesses, checks your insurance, looks at all these things, and it's kind of, when it came out, Angie's List and HomeVisor, they weren't none too happy about this.
Happy at all. No.
They weren't none too happy about this, but Google's doing this the same in the travel business. Travelocity and Expedia and all these companies saying, Google's kind of taking over that space. If you want to book a flight, you just do it directly through Google, because Google, all these businesses have given Google all this information over the years on your hotel inventory and your flight inventory. Now Google's just doing it. Now they're doing it with local services. So I wanted to, in talking with Pat, say we really probably should do a special a special live stream on this, announcing it, making people aware that Google Local Services is officially in the Minneapolis market. If you're any of the types of businesses that Pat mentioned, or any business that is a local service, you probably need to be paying attention to this. And we're toying with the idea, and probably like to do like a working session to invite businesses in to say, what are the steps of going through this process? Remember, I said it includes background checks. They check your license. You apply for this program.
Yeah, I think we're going to do one of two ways, and maybe both actually. In the local market, we'll do probably a live session in one of our conference rooms here that's can handle a larger capacity. And then two, we'll probably do a webinar as well, because that'll cover outside the local geography, and that might make some sense to do it that way as well. So.
Yeah, maybe too, if you're part of a franchise and you're in the Twin Cities area, but you're part of a larger franchise with services all over the country, you know, chances are your corporate is already familiar with this, because they probably run across it in other markets depending on where you're at.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah, but if not, I mean, it's something that you might want to push up the ladder. Just let the people upstairs know is that Google is now in the lead generation business. So if you've been buying, suppose your business, you've been buying, you know, heating and air conditioning leads through another service, Google's now putting themselves in a position to take a big piece of that pie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out, because, you know, in theory it works. It does make a lot of sense. But in practicality, you know, habits are hard to change sometimes. And so it'd be interesting to see how that really shakes out, because as I click on one of those boxes that Dale described on the top, I don't get a lot of deep background. For the most part, I get a phone number, I get, you know, the company's name, and then I can look at a whole bunch of reviews. So if you're one of those that needs a little bit more information during that consideration phase before you actually contact somebody, you know, you may drift away from those types of things.
Okay, so good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Also in these ads, if you get in the program, you sign up for the program, you go through all this, and you participate in the Google Local Services ads, you'll see a little green shield next to your business's name saying Google Guaranteed.
Yep.
Google will guarantee they will pay up to $2,000. If I hire a business and they didn't do a good job, Google will pay up to $2,000 to that person once they put in the claim. So to your point is, all right, you don't need to do your research. We're guaranteeing it because we've checked their backgrounds, we've done all that stuff, and we're putting $2,000 on the line if you're not satisfied.
Yeah, so it's kind of that BBB and Angie's List. You know, we're saying, hey, yeah, rubber stamp. These
Google's
guys are
putting
good.
their name behind it. And the other thing too is that this is going to, the way this is being set up is it'll work also with Google Home. So if you're using your Google Home, you're at home, you're using your Google Home and says, Google, find me somebody, you broke your garage door that morning. Google, find me, you know, I need my garage door fixed. The information in this Google Local Services will feed into that voice search function. So simply by doing this, you're preparing yourself for voice search.
Yeah. And that's for another topic for another day, because I think we're going down the road of voice searches and voice results as opposed to visual results that we're accustomed to on search engine results pages. You know, and so especially with local services, this I can see it being an interesting thing to follow to see how it shakes out.
Well, you say local services plus mobile, because we already know that some time ago it was announced that 20% of searches on mobile were voice.
Or voice. Yeah.
And that was even before Google Home entered into the picture, or Alexa or what have you. So the point that I would want to make in this is don't just do what you've always done because that's what you've always done. You know, kind of keep your eyes open to what's going on and say, well, wait a minute, how is this going to impact this business, or could it impact our business? And what are some of the steps that we should be going through to prepare for that? And that's why we do these live streams, right? We want to make people aware of these things, and please reach out to us if you have questions and if you want to explore this. Folks, that's why we do this. That's why we want to connect with, make ourselves available to connect. Maybe we're talking about things that you're not hearing from anybody else, but that's something that LTR has always been about. is talking about things that just, we are not like everybody else, and we're oftentimes ahead of the curve on some things. So
look at the sales pitch, Dale.
well, I'm just saying.
Look at that.
I'm just saying, right? I mean, we want you to do well, and if we're telling you this today, and 2 years from now, you go, why didn't I? I don't know. Why didn't you?
It's your fault. So
anyway.
All right. Thanks. Questions, concerns, ideas, thoughts, shoot us a note.
Yep. Hit us up on Messenger, call us.
Yep. Stay tuned for either the live session or the webinar. All right. Peace out.
Take care, everybody.